Hello team, welcome to another ATP Geopolitics video with myself, John, on the MSP. It's the Ukraine War news update, second part there of the 3rd of February 2024. This is an equipment and military aid segment on its own. I don't think I'm going to have time to do my geopolitics stuff, or I might be castrated by my partner. So let's just keep her on side and make sure I can give out enough content to keep everyone happy. Let's start with what Zelensky has said in the last 24 hours, which is massively significant. Good news today, he said yesterday evening. President Zelensky reports Ukraine's received 2 more air defense systems capable of intercepting anything. So that's his quote. He adds, while the systems are still insufficient for the complete protection of Ukraine, we work towards a goal every day. Now, this is one of 2 systems. It's going to be the Patriot, most probably the Patriot system, but it could be the SAMP-T system as well that we've seen given between France, Italy have together given some of those, or one of those, or not quite sure exactly what has been given. However, it's probably Patriot systems that have been given here. If they've been given another 2 batteries of Patriots, that is massive. I mean, this is really significant news. Now, they have received 2 more, which means they are in Ukraine at the moment. Now, if we have seen Patriot systems be pushed to the front line to occasionally strike at Russian airframes, and we have seen those airframes get taken down, which then stops aviation attacking frontline positions, and that's been super effective. We've seen the A-50 radar plane getting taken down, and so on and so forth. If that has happened with what they presently had, or what they have previously had, and now there are another 2 batteries in place, you can guarantee, or at least I would strongly think it's probable that Ukraine is likely to push some of these systems, one of these systems, much more regularly to the front line. Anyway, definitely good news in that sector, really. Right, moving on now. We have a lot to say about ammunition. So the EU has declared pretty publicly that it will fall short of its March 2024 goal of providing 1 million artillery rounds to Ukraine. I want to repeat what I have been saying, which is it's great that, and we'll see this in a second, that other people are saying the same thing, which is that we shouldn't concentrate on the 1 million. 1 million is a random number, like as in it's an arbitrary number. And it's been said, the EU said we are pledging to provide to Ukraine 1 million rounds of ammunition by March, the end of March 2020. They're not going to get that, and so therefore everyone is criticizing, or there are many people who are criticizing the EU for that. If they hadn't said a number, no one would be criticizing them in that way. Or if they'd said, say, 600,000, we're going to provide 600,000, and it looks like they're going to provide around 600,000, and then everyone would be like, good job, well done. But because they said 1 million, now everyone's going, well, you didn't provide 1 million, aren't you guys really crap? You aim for the stars and you can reach the moon. So we should congratulate the EU for saying, do you know what, we're going to try and do this. They didn't do that. Okay, but what have you achieved? And actually, you have achieved a massive ramping up of the production of shells in the EU. Right, so Borrell from the EU says that an additional 630,000 shells are to be delivered by the end of 2024 to fulfill the pledge. So this is what they would have provided, which is looking like somewhere between 500,000 and 600,000. And then an additional 630,000 will be provided by the end of the year. And that's just, it's good. They are moving in the right direction. Don't be, it's called anchor bias. When you bias thought by anchoring at a particular point by giving an arbitrary number. You do that when you're trying to sell a house or buy a house, sell anything, buy anything. You have these haggling periods where you're just, one person anchors down here, the other person anchors here, and blah, blah, blah. But if you don't anchor at that point and anchor at a different point, then your whole perception changes. Like instead of someone trying to sell a bracelet at a market and they say, I'm going to sell it to you at 100 spondeelies. So you go, well, okay, I'm going to go 50 spondeelies halfway between. But they could have said 1,000 spondeelies. And then you go 500 spondeelies. So you get biased to thinking what is appropriate as a number just by what is first posited. And so 1 million is just a number. And then that now biases us to think that 1 million is the acceptable, decent, proper number that the EU should have provided, just because it's what they said. But actually, had they said 500,000, we would have been none the wiser, right? Don't get biased by the anchoring of the 1 million. Just think about what they are doing and the good things that are taking place. That's how I would. And I'm not trying to be positive for the EU. I'm just like, we all need to help. People are working double hard to try and get production ramped up, and that's good. The Czech Republic have come out and proposed to the EU that they should buy shells outside of Ukraine, for Ukraine outside of the EU. And according to Politico, they've possibly found an awful lot of them. So as Europe fails to fulfill its promise to send 1 million artillery shells to Ukraine by March, the Czech Republic believes it should look outside the EU for supplies. Currently, the European Union says that Ukraine will receive 524,000 shells by the March deadline, while only 1.1 million shells are promised by the end of the year. So that kind of builds in what we just heard. And then, a scoop here from Paul McCleary here, referring to Politico again. So it's a Politico article. Czechia has found 450,000 155mm shells for sale outside the EU and is pressuring EU countries to finance a purchase. So actually, if you stump up the money, you can probably get 1 million shells by, or at least have them kind of on the way, if you like, by the end of March. So, it depends whether you're all about manufacturing within the EU so that EU money gets plowed back into the EU. That whole thing about this is a benefit to any given country that is providing stuff for Ukraine, because you're generally going to be putting contracts into your own industrial military complex to build stuff. So it's more employment, more tax dollars coming in, or whatever it is, coming into your own economy, and etc. etc. EU wanted, for sensible reasons, to make sure that all of those million shells were produced within the EU. Czechia is saying, well, we're not going to do that now. If we're serious about the pledge, and if that's an important number for you guys, well, then actually we can find 450,000 of these rounds outside of the EU, and here they are. So, want to do that? You need to stump up the money, but that means obviously that the money then goes outside of the EU. Right, EU didn't make it this year, but in the next 2 years, they have goals to increase production significantly. So, No Reports says that the EU will provide half of the promised 1 million, or just over half, 1 million artillery shells to Ukraine by March. But EU's ammunition production capacity should hit 1.4 million in 2024 and 2 million, that's 2 million per year, in 2025. 500 million euros is available for countries scaling up production capacity. And here we have CJ, who's a bit of an expert, speaking to Andrew Perpetua on his live stream last night, talking about this.
I would just say, I do have to go here, that it was a very positive week for ammo production across Europe, with new contracts in Slovakia and increased production in Germany. All these countries which have given a lot of ammo to Ukraine in the past. So that is all very promising.
Yeah, and then there's this news today that Europe might be looking outside of Europe or outside of the EU for more shells, which is nice.
That's a Czechia
that's
news.
What it takes. I mean, I think the money is there. It's just they wanted to increase their production as well, but if it's going to take too slow, then they might as well buy it from outside of Europe.
Yeah. I have no doubt that Europe is going to meet their plan. What is it? They want to make like 1 million, and then 2 million, and then 3 million. Is that it for the next 3 years?
Something like that, yeah.
I think they're going to meet that. I think they'll at least get close. I think this time they got close too. It's just, it might be a little too ambitious. Like maybe they'll only get 2.5 million instead of 3 or whatever. But at least they're trying, And it's not like it's not like they're not just talking. That's kind of what.
I don't know if Andrew's been listening to my videos. I know he does watch my videos quite often or sometimes, and we work together in the same area and we talk to each other and stuff. But he's basically saying exactly what I've been saying for the last couple of weeks, and so that's kind of validating and good that we're both sort of singing on the same song sheet here.
Excites me. They're not just like saying words; they're actually doing things.
No, absolutely. I mean, I'd rather shoot for a lot and get a medium amount than shoot for a little and get none.
Yeah.
Shoot for the stars, hit the moon.
I'm very hopeful that Europe will do it, because there are some factories in Europe that can produce enormous numbers of shells,
and this is where I know Richard has been criticizing Europe, one of my viewers, Europe and the UK for like not producing enough or not being good as the US or whatever. But actually, and said that the UK hasn't produced any, and then I gave you evidence that the UK has actually given 300,000 shells and is ramping up production eightfold. BAE Systems has been contracted to ramp up production eightfold, and BAE Systems underwrites much of the production around the world, or many different artillery ammunition production facilities around the world. They own them. They are big players in artillery ammunition production.
I have faith that they will do so. I actually,
as Romanov says, right? Time will tell.
I actually wonder if Europe will end up producing more than Russia just by itself. And then if you ever add on America on top of that, it would be nice. But who knows if that'll ever happen.
I think they're already close. I mean, Germany was 700,000, Slovakia getting up to 150,000. Czechia and Spain only have to make 1 million, or all of the rest of EU, other than those first three, have to make 1 million, and they're outproducing Russia. So, of course, that doesn't mean all of that's going to Ukraine, but still, they're actually making more than I think people realize.
Speaking of Russian production, what do you think of Russia moving to TNT? Do you think it matters?
No. I have no clue. But if it's not what they used to be doing when they had more time and slightly more quality control, then it's probably good for Ukraine.
Because it was I think they said that the ammo they're producing for their older guns, so like the 2S1, the 2S3, the D30, and the D20, I think they're all maybe not like exclusively, but they're going to be mostly TNT. And then I think the newer guns, like the Mista, is going to be whatever other explosive they use.
IMX. Well, the fact that they have to make new molds, and as we were talking about earlier, they have to make completely new different types, is a good sign that they're running out of rounds to refurbish. Again, it sounds like hope, but it really is not at this point.
Which is good news for comparative production.
People are dissing the British. I feel people are dissing the British right now.
And this is where I wonder whether he's been watching my videos as well again.
No, I don't think they should. You should diss America. Anyway, CJ left. He left us, Gick.
You were just saying we should diss America. he didn't want to hear it.
Yeah. I honestly think the British are going to be one of the largest producers of shells in Europe. In the next, it's probably going to take like a year to get there, but maybe by the end of this year they'll be at the top. Like the British, I think they might be able to produce as much as Russia just by themselves.
That's a big call.
Anyways.
And that, that'll be talking about a lot about what BAE Systems is doing. So, per a US official, the US could procure 155mm ammo from Turkey for Ukraine. It's unclear how this will be financed. The USA funds have been exhausted. Turkey, of course, has already supplied 155mm shells to Ukraine, at least 100,000 rounds per Oryx, including D-Pickums, so the cluster munitions that came from Turkey as well as from the US, pictured below, that were produced under license by MKE. What next? Lithuania has delivered a new package of military aid to Ukraine. The press service of the Ministry of Defense of Lithuania reports, and that includes thousands of shells for Carl Gustav anti-tank grenade launchers, as well as the RISE-1 remote detonation system. A number of places reporting on these thousands of rounds of ammunition for anti-tank grenade launchers and these remote detonation systems. So that's really good news. Thanks to Lithuania. Estonia has delivered Javelin anti-tank missiles, other military aid to Ukraine. Estonia has delivered these and ammunition and other bits of aid in its latest package, according to their Ministry of Defense today. Bulgarian Ministry of Defense has confirmed it started the process of delivering these 100 much older APCs that they had said they were going to deliver. Then these BTR-60s, then they didn't get around to doing it for some whatever reason it was. Anyway, they've started putting that in motion now, which is great news. And since 2022, Estonia has provided Ukraine with military aid worth nearly 500 million euros. That might not sound a lot to the US, right? But then Estonia's a tiny country. That actually amounts to 1.4% of the GDP. That's 1.4% of the GDP. That's huge, right, for them. So, when we're talking about the relative generosity and the relative work that certain countries are doing, it is quite incredible. And it's not so easy as just to look at places like the US that have given the most stuff and say, that's amazing, you're the best, thank you so much. And of course, in some metrics, they are the best. But there are other metrics, smaller countries are giving more than what they, more as a percentage of what they have to. Incredible. Manufacturing in the basement. So this goes towards the idea that Ukraine, I think, is able to do a lot more than people are giving them credit to do, certainly in the context of drones. This idea that Russia, go and check out the live stream I did with Daniela, where we talk a lot about this, where I was positing the idea that the official stats that Russia are producing like 300,000 drones per month and Ukraine are producing 50,000, and so therefore Russia are producing 6 times as many, I think are nonsense. Like, I don't think Russia are telling the truth. And I also think Ukraine are undercounting for quite a few different reasons. But one of them is you can't often count the drones that are funded like separately outside the government, individual units, different charities funding drones, giving them to armed forces, different units, without telling anyone particularly who counts those. And then here we've got manufacturing in the basement. It cannot be overstated how much those ordinary Ukrainian citizens are contributing to balancing out the lack of ammunition. Even housewives are doing their part to assemble FPV drones. This is admirable. And here we have like a basement manufacturing of, look at all of these drones. It's quite incredible. It's an absolute stack of drones in someone's basement, being made with a bunch of equipment that they funded somehow, however it is, and they're 3D printing a load of stuff and making drones for the front line. And again, is that being included in the official stats? The Wall Street Journal says Ukraine intends to produce 1 million FPV drones in 2024. So the production will be distributed among small enterprises in order to secure the plants from Russian strikes. It is noteworthy that first-person view drones can be controlled using virtual reality goggles. So again, the production of these will not be easily stopped by striking in industrial military complex facilities. For example, go back to this basement. They're not going to be striking somebody's basement. They don't know where this is being constructed, where this is taking place. But here's one basement manufacturing a whole bunch of drones, right? And I know a whole bunch doesn't give you much accuracy in terms of quantification there, but that's a bunch of drones, and there are going to be a bunch of those places doing that kind of manufacturing. And so, Ukraine is, I think, doing a really good job of outproducing, probably outproducing Russia in terms of drones in many of these contexts. The government has improved the mechanism of state support for large investment projects, reports the Prime Minister of Ukraine, Denis Shmyhal. Quote, Ukrainian and foreign businesses are ready to invest more than 12 million euros and create new jobs and receive maximum support on special conditions. A number of provisions are removed and simplified in order on the need for an economic analysis on the revision of the social assessment of the project, and the requirements regarding the applicant's financial capacity are also relaxed. bit of smashed up English there, but basically, Ukraine are working really hard to get private investment into working with the public sector to provide for the armed forces and to help sustain Ukraine as an ongoing entity, as an ongoing nation that is functioning. And I think they're doing a really good job. Right, Canada can transfer CRV-7 air-to-surface missiles to Ukraine. So sort of things that we see, the Hydra kind of missiles shot out of rocket launchers on helicopters, for example. These were going to be disposed of, as according to CBC TV channel in Canada. They have 83,303 such missiles and their engines. However, only about 8,000 of them have warheads. So that's a challenge. But nonetheless, 8,000 rockets would be pretty damned useful. CVR-7 is a 70mm air-launched unguided missile for ground targets. I think basically from the 1970s and 80s. Be super useful, though, for the Ukrainians. US imposes sanctions on key procurement network supporting Iran's missile and drone programs. The US sanctions target 4 entities based on Iran and Hong Kong designated for facilitating supplies to multiple Iranian military organizations. They're going to be ramping up sanctions big time, not only in the context of what's going on in the Middle East with Iran supplying stuff for the Houthis and Gaza and whatever, but also obviously with regard to Ukraine. So good news there. Anyway, that's enough from me. Take care. Speak soon. And hopefully, I don't know whether I can do the geopolitical video tonight. It's unlikely, but check out my channel in case I do. Take care. Speak soon.